Russia has reacted strongly to Thailand's decision to extradite alleged Russian arms merchant Viktor Bout to face trial in the United States, calling the move politicized. Bout has been held in a Thai prison since his arrest in 2008 by American and Thai agents posing as buyers for Colombian FARC rebels. A court has now ruled that Bout's case is criminal, overturning a decision that it was political, so extradition can go ahead. The 43-year-old former Soviet army officer is wanted on charges he was conspiring to sell arms. He's alleged to have been a supplier since the 1990s of weapons in Africa, South America and the Middle East through his air transport businesses. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said this verdict is unlawful and we're concerned. The Thai court's decision is political and regrettable. We have been giving this Russian citizen assistance all these months in contact with his lawyers and family. We'll keep doing our best to bring him home. Bout's wife has accused Thailand of bowing to US pressure. Washington has hailed the Thai decision, calling the trial an absolute priority. Its indictment says Bout conspired to kill Americans and provided material support to terrorists. Experts say Bout has been useful for Russia's intelligence apparatus and Moscow does not want him going on trial in the US.
The irreversible process of loading fuel rods into Iran's first atomic energy plant will begin this Saturday after a delay of almost 40 years. Tight security surrounds the inauguration at Bushehr. Scientists hope to generate electricity by the end of the year. The plant has been completed with help from Moscow, despite fears that Iran's nuclear program may be geared towards developing weapons. This is a global project which once again shows that if Iran develops nuclear energy peacefully under the control of the inspectors and in line with all the international legislation, then Iran and any other country has the right to do so, and Russia will support that. Tehran has so far faced 4 sets of UN sanctions for its refusal to halt uranium enrichment. US officials have reportedly convinced Israel that Tehran would take at least a year to build an atomic weapon.
A second attempt to save survivors of a pod of pilot whales from a mass beaching in New Zealand will be made this Saturday. 58 of the cetaceans died on remote Kari Kari Beach. Rescuers tried to refloat 15 of them at high tide but failed. The suspected reasons whales wash up on beaches are getting lost when hunting prey or traveling, or possible parasitic infections resulting in neurological disorders. The pilot whale is a member of the dolphin family. The adults can weigh 3 to 4 tons. The next attempt will be with heavy equipment, including a crane and transporter. September the 2nd will see Israel and the Palestinians start direct peace talks in Washington, a diplomatic source says. The United States, the European Union, Russia and the United Nations, known as the Quartet in the framework of the Middle East peace process, have been discussing a draft statement inviting the two sides to talks intended to conclude a treaty within 1 year. The Israelis and Palestinians are said to be expected to agree to attend, with President Obama also present. The Palestinian Authority government intends to have established all the attributes of statehood by mid-2011. Israel insists it is ready for direct talks, provided there are no preconditions. The Palestinians are ready, provided there is a clear agenda. Obama wants face-to-face talks started well before September the 26th, when Israel's 10-month moratorium on Jewish settlement building in the occupied West Bank is due to end.
This is daily life in the flood-hit areas of Pakistan, a struggle to survive. They are starving and desperate. With roads and bridges washed away, aid is struggling to get through. An estimated 20 million people are affected. That's almost 3 times the population of Greater London. At the UN, the US and EU led a stream of fund pledges. Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon didn't mince his words.
Pakistan is facing a slow-motion tsunami. As a destructive power will accumulate and grow with the time. International humanitarian organizations are straining every muscle to deliver, but they need massive additional support.
More than 4 million people have been left homeless by the floods. These are some of the lucky ones. Shelter, food and clean water are desperately needed to avert a humanitarian catastrophe. The flood swamped our village. It was dreadful. I had my baby, but now I don't know how I'll care for him or what will happen in the future. Pakistan says it plans to clamp down on charities with links to Islamist militants who are trying to exploit the desperation and anger among the flood victims.
There have been more signs of dissent in Kyrgyzstan's troubled south against the former Soviet Republic's interim government. "We want the mayor back," shouted this woman, one of hundreds who protested in Osh, the country's second city, following rumours that he'd been fired from his post. This has been denied in the capital Bishkek. The new government has struggled to impose its authority in the south since the former president was deposed in a revolt in April. This protester says unless the voices of local people are heard, they'll boycott forthcoming elections. October's vote is aimed at creating Central Asia's first parliamentary democracy. In June, tension spilled into the worst bloodshed in the country's modern history. Nearly 400 people were killed and many minority ethnic Uzbeks fled to neighbouring Uzbekistan. The government in Kyrgyzstan, which has both US and Russian air bases, is said to be seeking military hardware to maintain order in the south. Britain has urged Libya not to repeat the scenes of a year ago when the freed Lockerbie bomber returned to Tripoli to a hero's welcome. Abdel Basit al-Megrahi, who has prostate cancer, was released by the Scottish authorities on compassionate grounds. He had been serving a life sentence for his part in blowing up a passenger jet over the Scottish town in 1988. He was expected to die within 3 months, but he's lived to see the first anniversary of his release. The Foreign Office says more celebrations would be deeply insensitive to the victims. In Lockerbie and elsewhere, they're still questioning the original decision. A year on, the release still rankles outside Lockerbie too. The new coalition government in London also believes it was a mistake. The Scottish government says it followed medical advice about Megrahi's condition.
It was a decision that was never going to satisfy everybody. There was no consensus. Some disagree, some agree. But the decision had to be made by me. It was my responsibility. I followed the rules and the laws of Scotland. I acted on the appropriate advice, and it's a decision I stand by.
The anniversary has been noted in the US. Many of the bombing's 270 victims were American passengers bound for New York. 4 US senators investigating Megrahi's release have written to the UK government and the Scottish authorities demanding answers.
I hear that. What?
Did you hear that?
Brazil is calling you. Celebrate life here.
State-run Korean National Oil Corporation's taken its bid for Britain's Dana Petroleum hostile. Dana's management earlier this month rejected the offer, though nearly half the shareholders support it. The cash bid values Dana at around €2.3 billion, an almost 60% premium on the share price before the initial offer. The move reflects South Korea's urgent need to boost oil reserves. Showdown in the east for Airbus and Boeing. Thai Airways is negotiating with the two plane makers for a possible record order of 30 aircraft worth around €7 billion. The Airbus A350, which is still under development, is being pitted against Boeing's 787 Dreamliner. A Thai Airways executive said the state-controlled carrier is weighing up how each aircraft would fit with its strategic and marketing plans. One of the biggest US egg companies has taken 380 million eggs off the shelves after hundreds of Americans became sick with salmonella. Wright County Egg, based in Iowa, issued the recall for eggs sold under a variety of names in 17 US states. One economist said this could damage US consumers' confidence in eggs, lowering demand and pushing prices down. Potash is looking for buyers willing to top BHP Billiton's €30 billion hostile takeover offer. Sources at the world's largest fertiliser firm say they're confident alternative bids will emerge. One name being mentioned is the top Chinese fertiliser maker Sinofert. Compared with BHP Billiton, it is tiny, but its parent, Sinochem Group, is a huge state-owned company. So what chance that someone with deeper pockets than BHP will make a counter-offer?
Companies are feeling more confident. Companies are obviously, in many cases, very cash-rich. But at the same time, from a demand perspective, there is clearly this huge insatiable appetite for commodities from China, and I think in the next 10 years also from India.
China, which has very few potash reserves itself, is the world's biggest buyer, and India is another large importer. Potash Corporation's board has flatly rejected BHP's bid, and the Anglo-Australian mining giant says that it will take the offer directly to shareholders, many of whom have said that they will hold out for a sweeter deal.
Ah.
由于此时列车刚刚经历强震，
还没有啥。哪个在桥上啷个没法走？呀，这头人嘛。这桥下得了啊！
后面绿化都不要再动了。
你不开门那个啷个行呢？
开下门，现在在窗户打我开门了，我。
窗户打开吗？
我怎么了？两边都是河，你看你看我。
收一些当时旅客他们的行李啊，以及必须的这个生活用品。那么另外我们了解，其他10几节车厢因为受损并不是特别严重，那么所以今天通过这个铁轨被分别拉到了广汉火车站和德阳火车站进行这个车体的修复。
8个小时又落下去的。啊，你直接拽着这个绳就行了嘛。